I'm a beginner, and recently I've been obsessing over finding new ways to increase my productivity and give myself the best chance of success. And something that has helped me take massive steps forward has been optimizing my environment. As a beginner, there are so many obstacles between you and where you want to get to. By shaping our environment to promote growth and progression, we can overcome a lot of these obstacles and make the path towards success a much easier one to follow. By the end of this video, you will understand the absolute necessity of shaping your environment as a beginner, and you will discover new ways to promote positive behaviors whilst also reducing negative ones. If you do enjoy the video, feel free to subscribe for more growth-based content. Our environment is crucial for our mood, motivation, and behavior. Let me give you a historic example. It's a bit out there, but bear with me. During the Vietnam War, they launched investigations into the behaviors of the US Army soldiers, and they found something very concerning. They found that over 15% of them had resorted to taking heroin. Yeah. Not great. Now, of course, this sparked concern over not only the effectiveness of these soldiers, but also the impact that this was going to have on them as they returned home. They were concerned that these addictions were going to continue when they came home, and of course, that doesn't tend to go well for anyone. However, upon their return, something surprising happened. Contrary to their expectations, 90% of them no longer continue to use this incredibly addictive drug. But how is this possible? How have almost all of them managed to kick this bad habit? The answer lies in the environment. In Vietnam, the soldiers faced incredible environmental stresses, namely the people shooting at them. And to add to that, drugs were easily accessible and very cheap. However, as they returned home, the environmental stresses were removed, drugs became less accessible and more expensive, plus it was likely that this drug use was looked down upon in their social groups. And this works the other way around too. In 2006, a paper published by Lang and Frohlicher found that even by making small environmental changes, we can promote positive behaviors. They found that by putting junk food slightly out of reach and making healthier food more accessible, it was able to support participants in their weight loss and dieting journey. So as much as we can shape our environment can shape us. So how do we ensure that our surroundings push us in the right direction? There are several ways to do this. The first tip is to make positive behaviors more accessible. Our brains, and let's face it, we ourselves can be very lazy. Forcing our mind to consider the best option first is a really powerful way of promoting us to take that option. This may look similar to in the study where healthy food was made more accessible, or it may be leaving a book on your pillow that you want to start reading every night. Alternatively, it could be leaving your laptop and your notebook out, so when you come home, you're ready to start studying. Anything you can do to remove that physical barrier between you and your desired behavior can go a really long way. The second tip is to create an association between a state and a place. Our brains excel at associating feelings with locations. For example, when you go into a doctor's office, you may start feeling nervous, or maybe when you get in bed at the end of the day, you automatically start to feel more tired. And we can use this to our advantage. We can create associations between our workplaces and feelings like focus and motivation. If we only engage in activities that require focus at our workplaces, our brains will associate this location with the feelings of concentration and drive. These associations can really help you get into that mindset you need to get your work done. The third trick is to link our positive behaviors together. Just as we create associations between states and places, we can also link positive behaviors together. It's a concept I learned from reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. In this book, he refers to this practice as habit stacking. For example, as part of our journey to start eating healthier, we may decide that we're going to eat an apple every morning. Once we have that done, we can also decide then that we want to start getting 300 steps in whilst we eat the apple. And by doing this, we've created a chain of positive behaviors that all push us towards our goals. This means that once we overcome the barrier of doing something positive and making a positive change, it now becomes 2 or 3 or even 4 changes. Each time we engage in one positive habit, it triggers another, and then potentially another, and then over time, it can lead to massive changes in our life. The final tip is very simple, but very effective, and it's having reminders of our goals. As a beginner, everything can feel so far away from achieving, but if you're starting this journey, you probably have a pretty good reason. This may be a strong desire to grow and build something of your own, like a business or a channel. Or maybe you want to help people, or potentially you just want to get rich. I'm pretty sure all 3 of those apply to me. So have cues in your environment that remind you of the reason you're putting all this work in. So shaping our environment can be a really powerful tool for promoting positive behaviors, but also for reducing negative ones too. Just like the soldiers in Vietnam, although hopefully not quite as extreme, Stresses and parts of our environment can lead us to engage in behaviors that are counterproductive. So, how can we avoid these stresses? Well, essentially, we have to just do the opposite of what we did for the positive ones. We have to try and make our bad habits not as accessible, like not buying junk food or not having your phone next to you at work. See, a lot of the time we actually don't want to engage in our bad habits, but it just kind of comes to us automatically. So, if we can add a barrier between us and them, it means that if we want to go on our phone or eat a Snickers, it has to be intentional. Next, we don't want to associate bad habits with the places we work at. For example, if you take your breaks at your desk, your brain may start creating associations between these feelings of relaxation and your desk, and that can make it difficult to get into work mode. Essentially, just separate work and fun. Next, we want to cut off our negative behavioral patterns at the head. For example, if you know that going on TikTok is going to lead to you not getting any work done and absolutely rotting your brain, then it's probably not best to go on it. And finally, have a reminder of who you don't want to be. I think people may have issue with this idea as a motivator, but for me it really works well. This idea of having someone I could become if I don't work hard. Like, it's a really good motivator to make sure that I don't regress to who I know I could be. I believe it was Jordan Peterson, and I'm sure he used much more eloquent language, but essentially he said we need something to run to, but also something to run from. This potentially can be a slightly toxic way of thinking about things, so make sure you're mindful that you don't want this to be your sole motivation of getting better. So hopefully now you can see that shaping your environment can be a really powerful tool for helping you in your journey. To summarize, we want to make our desired behaviors more accessible and make it more difficult to engage in the negative ones. Create positive associations between our workplaces and feelings of focus and motivation. Create positive behavioral patterns that make it easier for us to make changes in our lives. And finally, have reminders of why you're doing all this in the first place. Hopefully with these tips you can shape your environment to give yourself the best chance of success. Part of being a beginner, at least for me, is having this huge drive inside of me to keep working towards my goals. But with that comes a risk of burnout. This is something I recently made a video on how to combat the symptoms and prevent it from happening in the future. So if you want to make your work rate more sustainable, check that out right here. And if you did enjoy this video and benefit from it somewhat, feel free to subscribe and like. That would be greatly appreciated. And aside from that, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a lovely day. Bye bye.